What's up? Welcome back to Game Brigade. If you are new here, my name is Brian, and today we are going to be diving back into the back or skip. We haven't done this series since 2023 because, the campaigns just weren't very impactful and there wasn't a lot to talk about, but we're back. There's a lot of good campaigns that are starting to hit the scene, and here we are going to talk about some of the ones that I'm most interested in that I thought would be good to kind of dive into. So without further ado, let's go ahead and hit the first one, which is A Song of Ice and Fire Tactics, a tabletop miniatures game, and this is from CMON, and this is on GameFound. What I like about this campaign is obviously it's a skirmish game set in the Game of Thrones universe, A Song of Ice and Fire, and I'm really liking what I see here. But my concern or my caution, if you are looking for a game like this to back, is skirmish games are very difficult to table regularly. I don't know what it is about skirmish games, but I just don't see them played as often comparatively to other games, and they usually are very cost intensive because you have to get all the different types of units. So what do we have here specifically in this game? Well, you are going to be placing your miniatures here that are based on different types of factions that are part of the Game of Thrones universe with different types of houses, and you're going to be battling on this hex grid table system. So it's not like a tabletop miniature game where you kind of use rulers to kind of measure out your distances. It's still being dictated by hex movement, and you'll move so many spaces, and each of these units have a different type of attack, and if I remember right, they usually are rolling some sort of dice, and based on your attack level, it'll be like I deal damage on 6 and down or something like that. Or if I defend, I'm defending on a 9 and down or 9 and up, something like that. It's either 9 up or 9 down. I can't remember what the roll is. But effectively, you're going to be moving around the board, going for different types of objectives and goals as you try to defeat your opponent. Now, they've got a lot of different types of pledges here, but I thought that was really interesting. And they have this pledges without banners for $60, saves $20, FSMR, MSRP, which I actually kind of do believe. But this is a non-stretch goal pledge. It's the first time we've seen CMON do this, saying, hey, if you don't want the stretch goals, if you want effectively a true retail copy, here's the game, basically like a retail copy would be, save $20. And I do believe that this would be around that $80 price point. Usually we see CMON games around $80 to $100 for a retail copy, yet they don't have the stretch goals. So it never made sense to buy them at retail because you pay for the exact same price on crowdfunding, plus you get all the bonuses. So here we have the Sworn Brothers. That's the $80 price point. This one will come with all unlocked stretch goals. And then you have additional purchases like Ducarius, this $260 miniature with the massive dragon, which is usually features just a individual scenario for you to play with. Now, as I was going through different types of add-ons, there's so many things for you to purchase. You have different types of skirmish sets, which comes with different types of territories and different types of units. So based on the type of unit you're looking for, they have a whole bunch of different things for you to take a look at. So you've got the Lannisters, you got the Starks here. You can go through all of them. You can see that there's a whole wide variety of different types of people that you can fight with. The Blacks, and then down here you have the Greens. I haven't read the book, so I can't say exactly. First off, I will say this. Going through this, I'm very impressed with how they have really taken on the books, the story of the books and the characters of the books, more so than, say, like the TV show, if that's what you know as a TV show. Because there was characters, and I was like, who the heck is this? I don't even know who this was. And so I had to wiki it and look it up and be like, oh, wow, these are characters from actually the book. So I'm kind of impressed that that's what they did. One of them was like the undead Catelyn Stark, which I was like, that sounds weird. It's this one right here. I saw this Catelyn Stark, Lady Stoneheart, and I was like, what is this? So I had to look up Lady Stoneheart and found out, yes, this is actually true. This is like Catelyn Stark resurrected. So spoilers, by the way, if you haven't seen the show or read the book. But overall, what are my thoughts here with this game? I think I would enjoy this game. It looks fun. I love the theme. I love the universe that it's a set in. But like I said at the top of this section, it's going to be expensive for you to invest in. And I have found that skirmish games are just a little bit more difficult to get in, and they're almost always more player restricted because it's usually 1v1, and it's harder to get those bigger player groups going for something like this. So I have a hard time recommending a game like this, even though I think it looks pretty solid overall, and I think there's going to be a lot of people who would enjoy it. But when you have so many other skirmish games, and again, this is my personal opinion, but I've like Rainbow Six on the way. We just got Mythic Battles Ragnarok. I've got Company of Heroes with 2nd edition on the way. A lot of different types of skirmish games. So when you're looking at something like this, you have to ask yourself, how does this fit within my personal collection? Who am I going to play this with? And what's my cost per play kind of look like? Am I going to see that kind of, come back for itself? So I am going to say that this is a back if those things are true with you and you feel like this is something you can actually get some enjoyment for. But for me, I'm personally going to skip on it. I would love to play this at some point. If it's available at a convention or something and someone wants to play a round or two with me, when I say around to like two or three skirmish games, I would love to play this. But overall, I just cannot see myself right now backing a Song of Ice and Fire Tactics. The next thing, I was really surprised that it's doing, maybe it's as well as it because of the backer count, Tokyo Highway Rainbow City. Sitting here at 4,452 backers currently, just over $200,000 US. Now, this was interesting, and this is obviously more board game adjacent, although this is still part of the tabletop board gaming experience. But this is a game where you are building up basically highways and city districts in the city of Tokyo, and you are basically kind of constructing and building kind of like a 3-dimensional experience on top of each other. This game was originally released several years ago, and now this is coming back with some kind of like a refined version, including some of the expansion content that came out, removed some of the stuff, but added some more stuff. So it's not like a complete collection, but it's close enough as you can get to a complete collection. But as you can see, you're going to be building these roads. You have these little cars that you can be placing on these roads. They've added some more different types of car units. This is not something I would ever buy. I don't see that this is something that personally I could find in my collection or would want to see it played. But I know that people love these types of puzzles and this kind of construction and seeing things 3-dimensionally kind of build up. And I want to make sure people took a look at it before this campaign ended. You've only got 47 hours left to go at the time of this recording. So I would definitely check it out if you're interested in this, because it seems like something that's going to be hard to get otherwise if this is something that would be up your niche. Next, we have Cryptic Nature, Discover the Project and Legendary Creatures. This is, again, 38 hours to go, 4,000 backers, doing very, very well. This one is a game where you are trying to find cryptids. Now, cryptids are kind of like lore-ish, mythical creatures like the Loch Ness Monster or the Yeti or Bigfoot. They're creatures that people swear they've seen. They exist in folklore, but we haven't really gotten proof of them. Those are cryptid creatures. Well, in this game, you are a cryptozoologist who is going to try to find those cryptids by discovering them. And there's several different ways you can do it: by gathering different types of clues, by sending your specialist out and looking for clues. And then those clues will have relations to different types of cryptids, and you can eventually capture those cryptids, and then you're going to build on this kind of like polygonal metallic tile board habitats for them. This very much kind of reminded me of Ark Nova, and I bet you that's kind of where they got the inspiration for this board. Was like, oh, people like zoos and Ark Nova and building out their paddocks. Well, we're going to kind of copy that. Not as interesting because Ark Nova gives you kind of building restrictions of how you can kind of construct it. Well, this doesn't seem like it's that way, but the game effectively will end when this paddock zone is unable to take more tiles. Overall, watching the gameplay, I'm personally not as enthralled by the experience of this. It seems kind of like you're just kind of moving around to these different locations, getting different types of resources, generating those resources to create these creatures. Now, there is a push your luck mechanic where you can kind of roll some dice and hope to get some cards. I think that the gimmick of this game, or this mechanic of looking for the cryptids, will wear off in time as you learn and kind of internalize and memorize what type of cryptids you need or what you can get with the resources you have. And then you have your your assistant meeples here who are going to be traveling along this sideboard here, if you can see, and whoever is the furthest down on the track will have priority for turn order, but you will be raising your person up the track to kind of lose that initiative by getting different types of skill upgrades and whatnot to increase your capabilities. It looks cute. I'm not going to deny it. I think it looks cute. The idea is cute. I think cryptids are kind of a fun little thing to dive into, some folklore. They also have some flavor text printed here on the card to kind of tell you like what this creature is, like a serpent mollusk hybrid whose slimy tentacles can extend for miles. You know, something like that. They're cute, and it gives you some more interesting facts about some cryptids that you might not know about. But I do think this is a little gimmicky, and I'm not so sure the legs for me are there, but it's there. So let's take a look at the pledge tiers. So you can get the base copy for 42 euros. You can get the expansions, which are going to add a lot more content for it, for 75 euros, and the all-in, which is going to come with some of those deluxified components, which I personally, you know, if I'm going to be able to get a board game, I like to make it deluxified. You'd be looking at 120 euros in all. Now you can look at these if you want to get a base game and maybe do a la carte. Those are available as well. The next one we're going to be taking a look at is Last Light from Gray Fox Games. This is the second printing of this game, kind of doing some minor corrections and offering the game back. Last Light, I will tell you what, when this delivered, there was a lot of people hyped up for this game. And I would say most of them were hyped up, were looking for the deluxified version. So there are two different versions of Last Light. You've got the retail version, which doesn't include the cool planets and all that stuff, and then you've got the Luxified version, which has all of those things. In terms of this game, if you are looking for this game, I would highly recommend just backing it here on the GameFound thing and get your deluxe edition, which includes all these kind of upgraded components, because it's been more difficult from what I could tell finding this game at a reasonable price in the secondhand market before this was reprinted. So again, the retail version without the deluxified stuff seemed to be pretty available for the most part, but it seemed like most people were looking for these deluxified options. You also have this Infinity Deluxe expansion. You can take a look at that as well, which includes some more stuff for you to include in the game. Now, what is this game? Well, this is a game where you are basically playing a 4X experience in a 1 to 2 hour timeline. That's kind of been the trend lately, or the kind of the hype word of let's build a 4X game, but not take 7 hours like Twilight Imperium, which is the pinnacle best 4X experience I've played. You know, how can we get that kind of experience in a 2 hour? Well, I don't think you truly can. You can't get the depth of game. So you're going to be sacrificing things. And I think that's my original take when I looked at Last Light, was it sacrifices some of the key experiences to condense it into a 2 hour timeline. Now, some people are okay with that, and I don't think it's bad. It just minimizes things. There's things like the action cards are just kind of more bland. The movement is kind of a little bit more restricted, but it still gives you a lot of the feelings that a 4X game can provide. Now, overall, if I were to give you your advice, again, as I said at the top of this section, if you were interested in this game, it looks like something you're looking for, I'd highly recommend getting it right now during the campaign, just because the secondary market was a little bit dried up where people were looking for this specific version of this game. I personally, as I did the first time, I'm skipping on it. I don't need the dried up kind of shallower version of a 4X game. There are other games that I like that are a little bit more meaty, that are more like that 3 to 4 hour experience, like Eclipse, in my opinion. So that's it for me, but I do see the value of this. There are definitely people who will look at Last Light and say, this fits what my player group wants. We only really have time for that 2 hour experience, and I want that space epic drama just kind of condensed, just kind of like, you know, miniature version. And then we have another version of that game, another version of the space epic drama, Eve War for Eden. Now, this is also one that claims to be that kind of shorter time limit here. You can see 90 to 180 minutes. They're also saying, hey, we're going to provide you more of that experience in a shorter time frame. And honestly, when I look at Eve, I am more drawn to Eve with having zero experience with the IP. Normally, like when we're talking about IP based games for board games from other stuff, I'm pretty well versed in whatever that IP is. Eve is one that even though I worked at GameStop when this was like huge, I have never really been interested in Eve because it's just so heavily involved in the economy and it's just such a really taxing game. But what I see here on this board game is something that looks pretty interesting for me in terms of an actual 4X. You have some good exploration, you have some good units, you have a lot of different types of technological upgrades. What holds me back on this one is it's very cost prohibitive. So let's talk about that. If we come down here, you've got the Capsuler. This is the core game for 129 euros. Going to ahead and get you all of the components to be able to play the game. But then it's going to say, hey, upgrade your pledge. Let's talk about that. The Veteran Pledge is going to offer the Havoc expansion. It's a 5th player expansion. It's actually an expansion I think I would want. Okay, someone keeps texting me. Hold on. It's a 5th player expansion that it basically adds a pirate faction where someone is going to be, instead of taking on a full-fledged faction like everyone else, they're kind of more of a chaos dwelling person who could potentially assist or help other people, who also has their own victory conditions. I think that's kind of a cool thing, and I personally like playing 4X games at a 5 or higher player count because I like having the ability where it's not just 2v2, which in a 4 player count it kind of becomes like, I won't attack you because I got to deal with this person, and alternatively they say the same thing. So I like having a 5th player because it adds that kind of that rogue element. Now we have other things they're going to kind of talk about. They have the Capital expansion. This basically says, hey, you want your game? Let's just make it 200% bigger. Basically bigger minis, bigger tiles, bigger resources. That's cool, but it's expensive. You're looking at 400 euros for this one. And then if you want to get the Havoc expansion bigger, that's also an additional 200. So you're already up there in the pricing. And then they have additional add-ons on top of that. You've got the Neoprene Mat. You have the Secessions expansion, which includes additional faction players that give you additional units or abilities, so you can have some asymmetrical built into each additional faction. Again, that's like something I want. Like that's more variety. But the costs, when you're looking at all these things and you start kind of eye leveling it out, you're like, this is looking like $1,000 game, and I'm gonna get what, like maybe 3 or 4 plays in this before the next game comes in. The cost of per play is like $250 a play. It's not worth it. So while I'm very interested in this game, I really like what I'm seeing here. I just think it's a little bit cost prohibitive for me to really get the experience that I want this one from. And that's the unfortunate part. If you want to watch a good video, Becca Scott from Good Time Society has a really good video here to kind of give you an idea of how the game plays. And you probably could just be fine with the core box, but I do think you need that Havoc expansion. I think you need the Secession expansion. So you're already adding on there. It's going to be at least $250, I feel like, for this game to really get the best version of it. And the final one that we're going to be taking a look at here is Photo Tour North America board game. And this is one of those games that very much kind of reminds me like Parks. A beautiful little relaxing kind of a game where you're moving around the United States trying to take different types of photos to eventually win the photography awards. And it's got a cute little mechanic where you're using photography equipment to lock down cards and get different types of abilities on these. I think this looks like a fun little cute game. I also want to give props to the publisher here for picking content creators that deserve more recognition. So these Inspired to Game, she has a great video here kind of giving an overview. If you come down here a little bit, I think Bitewing Games has a video that he does really good jobs as well down here. Bitewing, these are great content creators that just need to get more exposure from publishers, and I'm always really glad when I see a publisher working with people that need more love, because you always see the same faces on Kickstarter campaigns all the time. So sometimes it's great to get a different opinion, different voices out there. So this one looks good. Now, am I backing it? No, I have enough games that fit this niche already. Parks being probably the most popular one that I have within my group. And so I'm personally going to skip it, but I do like what I see here with the overall mechanics, and I would recommend people to check it out if you haven't already. So that is going to wrap up the backer skip. We have a few games that we're really going to like here. If I were to give you my pick of the week, the game that I'm probably most interested in, there's two games that are contending for that. The first one being a Song of Ice and Fire, and the EVE Online. And personally, I'm still more drawn to the IP of this one. I think it's also maybe a little bit easier to play, but they're both there. But I'm going to give my pick of the week to a Song of Ice and Fire. I think this is the one that I would go with. EVE Online seems good, but it's also kind of a more abstract, more complex systems, and I'm not sure how good that's going to be. I think it's Song of Ice and Fire is probably going to be the one. That's my pick of the week that I definitely would love for my the version of this for the indie publishers is going to be the Photo Tour North American board game. I do think this game looks pretty good. I like the mechanics of it. There's only one mechanic that I'm a little iffy on, and that's the pool of available cards doesn't refresh automatically. So one player is going to have to spend one of their resources to refresh things. And that always stinks because depending on your player group, some people are going to be like really kind of not wanting to spend their resources. They're going to wait for you to spend your resources to refresh the pool so they can buy them. And that's always kind of a weird feel bad moment for me. So I don't care for mechanics like that, but overall the game looks fun. So that's it. My name is Brian from Game Brigade. I hope you guys have found some value and enjoyed this video. Let me know in the comment section down below, and I will talk to you very soon.